Well, welcome to the Money Tip Podcast presented by Fully Funded Life, where we are committed to helping you with right now relevant resources so that you, yes, you can live your fully funded life. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Ellie Kay. And so I want to do an introduction to Ellie. We met at a church that I was speaking at in Palmdale, California, which is about an hour and 20 minutes north of LA. Ellie is the best-selling author of 16 books, has 1 million of them in print, including Lean Body, Fat Wallet, and Heroes at Home. She's a Toastmaster. Toastmasters is an amazing speaking organization. She's an accredited speaker with them, as well as a popular international speaker and media veteran who's given over 2,800 media interviews. She's given over 2,000 speeches to audiences as large as 10,000 people. And she's founded a nonprofit called Heroes at Home, which provides free financial education to the military. By incorporating this background, she launched an influencer agency representing 8-figure brands in the marketplace. She has also had a 100-episode podcast called the Money Millhouse. In her free time, get this, she enjoys travel and adventure. Is it like just driving in a car or an RV? No, it's skydiving, flying a fighter jet, and zip lining. She's married to Lieutenant Colonel Bob Kay. They have 7 children and soon to be 13 grandchildren. Welcome to the podcast, Ellie Kay.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate that introduction. You think I've lived 3 lifetimes, so
well,
I
can tell you, I would see several of my lifetimes go in front of me if I ever was in an airplane with the idea of falling out of it. Is that something you did you do that like when you were young, or is it something you enjoyed later?
I actually did it for my 50th birthday.
There we go.
I'm not going to tell you how long ago that was, but some adventures I just want to do. It's kind of like that bucket list kind of thing. I just want to do it, not necessarily to say that I've done it, but just to have done it.
Yeah.
And there are certain adventures that are just one-offs. Skydiving was, I can do it once and I'll be fine.
That's great.
Whereas ziplining, I'll do over and over again, or bungee jumping over and over again. Roller coasters just went this week. But the other one that's just a one-off was the fighter jet. So I pulled 7 Gs, flew 1.5 hours, and I only have to do it once.
And did I understand maybe your husband is a fighter pilot? Is that true?
Absolutely. So my husband flew for the Air Force for the better part of 3 decades.
Wow.
And now we have a son that is a fighter pilot carrying on that tradition.
That's awesome. What type of pilot is he? What plane?
So my son flies the F-15E Strike Eagle.
Okay. That's great.
And then my husband flew the stealth fighter, the F-117, among other things.
That's awesome. So thanks for their service and for the family service. We know if one serves, the whole family serves. So we met. I was speaking at a church. You had spoke at the start of a series there, and I just immediately I listened to your message and I immediately said this would be incredible to have you introduced to our audience. And so you shared a little bit about your financial journey there. Very compelling. Would you share, with our audience a little bit about your financial journey, how you got into this?
Well, certainly. When I married my husband all those years ago, as I said, he's a fighter pilot, and he said, "Hey, let's join the Air Force and we can see the world." But what he really showed me was 5 children in the first 7 years of marriage.
Oh.
And that was in addition to the 2 children that he had already. So that's 7 kids to financially support. And then we moved. We took the show on the road. So we moved 11 times in 13 years. And I also, in a conjunction with that, we had a lot of debt. And that's what happens in second marriages, is that you can carry over a lot of debt. And there was actually one week when we didn't have enough money for groceries when we were first married. And we had 2 or 3 children at that time. And I remember thinking, Lord, you're going to provide for us in some way. And he did. But it was actually through my husband's ex-wife's mother. And I thought, wow, I've got to accept provision wherever it comes and be grateful for it. But from that point on, I learned how to save money. That became my part-time job. Even though I had a business background and I was in business before I married him, I made my new job saving money. And that eventually led to doing conferences for the military, which caught the eye of a publisher, which nailed that first book down. And then that led to what I'm doing today. But it came out of very great need that we have. In fact, we had $40,000 of consumer debt back in the late 80s.
Wow.
And
that's a lot.
we paid it off. That back then, that was a lot of money, a lot of debt. And we paid it off with God's help. We paid it off in 2.5 years because we started following biblical principles and of budgeting and principles when it comes to debt, and especially of tithing. And God honored that, and we were grateful.
That's amazing. And, I think it's important that everybody hear this. Every generation faces its own challenges of what seems insurmountable. $40,000 of consumer debt in the late 80s sounds like a lot. I was just having a conversation about a movie I'd recently watched, again, Christmas Vacation, and Clark Griswold is wanting to build a pool. And somebody's saying, how much do you think a pool cost to build back in the late 80s? That we literally had this question. And I was like, I know what it costs now. So I guarantee you back then, whatever it was a ginormous number. But yet you were able to do it in less than 3 years. That's amazing. So that means both of you and your husband had to be on the same page. Was it just a moment that said, hey, we're done with this? Or was one of you kind of the leader and trying to drag the other into it? How did that conversation happen? And the focus, how did you become so focused?
Joe, you really understand that it usually takes two to get into debt, but in some cases it could actually just take one person to get into debt. I was the born saver. That's probably not a huge surprise. I married a born spender, but today he'll call himself a reformed spender. And we did have to get on one page. So it was actually his debt that he brought in. He married me for my paid off car and my $1,000 in the bank.
You're wealthy. Come on.
My early 20s. And we did get on one page, and we actually developed a money workout. And we decided, look, if we could just do this once every 2 weeks, don't even have to do it once a week, a money workout, and talk about our money in a controlled environment, start, finish, no rabbit trails, then we can make progress. And that's what we did. And I ended up writing a book called The 60-Minute Money Workout. Today, you can't get that book, but you can get the resource. And so if your listeners want to request that from you, go to your show notes, however you want to drop it to them. We can give them the 60-Minute Money Workout, where you have all these specific sections. It only takes an hour, and you pick the topic. Maybe it's going to be budgeting. Maybe it's your vacation, how you want to save for that. Maybe it's buying a house. Whatever it might be, you pick the topic of the day. Even if you just do it every 2 weeks, you're going to find progress if you continue to do it.
I love that. And we will definitely provide a link in the show notes because I love that you said there's a defined start and a defined finish. I think a lot of times we avoid the money conversation because we're like, this is going to disintegrate into a large, confusing fight. Steve Martin once famously said, never fight about money, because after you said a bunch of mean things with each other, the financial problems still remain. And so I love that you bookend it. That's really awesome. And so, you've been able to make all these appearances on national media. You've been able to partner with these large corporations as a influencer and connecting with influencers. What are the biggest challenges you see facing the generation today, those people just getting started in their financial journeys? And what advice would you give to them?
I think that the greatest problems that I'm seeing in Gen Z and millennials as they're beginning their own journey is the idea that they have to live at their parents' standard of living. And in many cases, the only way to do that is to go into debt. And a lot of these, the generations, these are my children that we're talking about, basically, they have student loan debt. They're used to the idea of debt. There's a big tolerance when it comes to debt. But there's also a trend that I'm seeing in that generation where they don't want to have that much debt. They've seen peers, they've seen parents, perhaps older siblings that have the burden of debt. And so they're wanting to get out from underneath that. So I would say that learning to save up for things, learning creative ways to get things. I mean, just something as simple as Marketplace. I mean, you don't have to buy a brand new snoo. You can go find one on Marketplace for that baby that's coming and pay half the price with that. So there are creative ways to still have a certain standard of living without paying that traditional price for it.
That's awesome. And, you know, it's those principles of frugality. They're age time tested principles, but they're harder to express when they see their friends going and buying it new, when they see everything on social media, everything's new, and they're relentlessly marketed to. That's really great advice. And I love that idea. Just simple Facebook Marketplace. I remember I was timid about Facebook Marketplace, but you know, I needed a bunny rabbit. My kids wanted a bunny rabbit, and I found a bunny rabbit, and I found these delightful people, and I got this bunny rabbit, and I got this bunny rabbit way cheaper than going to PetSmart. And I'm telling you right now, they love that rabbit. It's incredible. And as a result, that one decision to open up Facebook Marketplace for me. And you're right. I mean, half off, that's just the beginning. You can get stuff 90% off.
Oh, totally. And not only that, but then you can sell your stuff. I mean, you don't have to hang on to it. It's not an intimidating process. Of course, it seems like my millennials can do it in their sleep. They can sell and buy off Facebook. But the bunny wabbit, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking of these really old Looney Tunes about kill the wabbit. We don't want to sing that song.
We didn't kill the wabbit. The wabbit was a very special family pet. Yep.
That's nice. Nice.
So here's what I would like to ask is, you know, you've been able to show up on all these appearances, and a lot of times when it's network television, things like that, you know, how much time do they really give you? They're not going to give you 30 minutes. You've got the elevator speech. So what's been your like driving message? Like if you have that elevator, that network time, what's the message you love to get across to people?
One of the things that I really love to do is to get across the idea of generosity. And I know that may seem a little bit different, but like I've gone on CNBC's Power Lunch, and I remember sitting in the green room, and I'm basically a mom that started a business from home of writing and speaking, and it just kind of grew. And I'm sitting in the green room with these cherry pickers, and they're stock experts that are probably worth millions of dollars. And I remember one of them in his $5,000 suit looking at me and saying, "What can someone like me learn from someone like you?" And I told him, I said, "You can learn to be generous with what you have."
Wow.
I don't know if you are, but if you're not, and that's a message that I like to share. And it seems like that's a evergreen message, not just during the holidays or the beginning of the new year when everybody's thinking about money, but just year round. And when I go to a restaurant and I see how people are working really hard, every now and then, you know, the Holy Spirit may prompt in my mind to give them kind of above and beyond, not just a 15 to 20% tip, but maybe a 50% tip. I like to listen to that voice within me. Yeah. And that prompting. And if I'm going to err, whether it's someone that works for me or whether I'm giving a gift of some kind, I want to err on the side of generosity, because I really do believe that verse in Malachi that talks about giving to the Lord and that we'll get a blessing that just overflows. And it's something that we can't outgive him. So that is a message that I feel like hits all audiences, all generations, because there's power in giving. Yeah,
there absolutely is. I just have seen it. You've seen it. So many people have seen it. Like even I say it's contagious. Even generosity is that once you've done it, you want to do it more. When you see someone else be generous, it compels it within you. One of the most prominent places we see it is in the drive-through line. You know, when we've gotten there and they say, "Hey, somebody's paid for your meal." Well, what is your immediate response? "Well, I'll pay for the meal behind me." And then, of course, you quickly look to make sure it's not a 15-passenger van filled with football players who have voracious appetites. But, it really is an amazing thing. I love that. Do you have like a favorite financial quote or a tool that you love to point people towards?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of really great tools out there. And recently, Mint has gone out of business. And they were a great budgeting tool. But Simplify is another budgeting tool that I like that's really good. And then there's so many. I mean, I could probably go on and on, but I do like to travel a lot. My family likes to travel. And so we like Hopper. Hopper is where you can go in and put the flight that you're looking at, and as prices go up and down, they notify you of when the very best time is to buy those airline tickets. And that's something that I really like. And then it seems like my children are Target moms. And so the Target app, that red circle app, is really helpful. It's just such a great resource. You've got so many coupon codes and specials that kind of come up in that app. So those are just a few that we could look at right now.
Yeah, that's great. And, it really builds customer loyalty is what it does. But if you use it wisely with a budget, you can get some fantastic deals. You've got to have that personal discipline. That's fantastic. So, one of the things you've surely seen, I see a lot, is many married couples just cannot get on the same page financially. You've expressed how you and your husband got on the same page, and it really helped you get out of consumer debt really quickly. I've seen in your bio that you're able to pay off a house, and then you bought another house and paid it off. And, that doesn't happen if you're not on the same page. So what are some tips you would give to couples? You're a natural born saver. Usually it's the saver trying to rescue the spender. What are some tips you would give those savers listening to the podcast, trying to get what they view as a hopeless spender, to get on the same page with them?
Well, Joe, I think that one of the main things to think about when you've got that variance in the couples, one is a born spender, one is a born saver, is to suspend judgment, if you will. Us born savers feel like obviously we're superior because we're saving money. And my husband, he always had a really good work ethic. When he was 7, he would pull weeds, but the money would never see the inside of his pocket, because he was always spending it. And amongst my own children, I have born spenders and born savers. And yet that you can come together and suspend that judgment. So one's not righteous and one's not a filthy sinner. I mean, they're not. Like, really, one's not better than the other, because I was such a born saver that when I went to Spain one year, when I was 13 years old, that's where my family of origin is from, is Spain. I spent the summer there with my cousins, and I took 3 rolls of film. You're probably going to have to explain that in the show notes.
Yeah, I like it.
Rolls or film are.
With your Pentax K1000 camera.
Yeah. And so I took 3 rolls of film to Spain for the whole summer, 3 months, and I came back with 2.5 rolls unspent because I saved that much film. So it can be compulsive, and it could be a born saver. And that's what my husband and I did. I realized that when we go to McDonald's, I don't have to order the Happy Meal for myself. I could actually get a salad or something that costs more. I mean, he had to learn that when he goes to Costco to pick up batteries, he doesn't come back with a new air compressor that
and no batteries.
And no batteries. Thank you. My husband. That's right. You met my husband. But I think that that's one of the main things that can really help. And then, of course, getting into what we've already talked about before, a money workout of some kind, to where you can really talk about things. And Joe, you have been doing this a very long time as well. And I know that you have seen all kinds of couples in different phases in their relationships. And there is a time when, if you just cannot get together on it, and it's almost like a crisis point, that you seek out a third party. I think it's totally fine to get a financial coach or a counselor, and someone that can really unpack, Ellie, why can't you spend money? Why do you have such a scarcity mindset? Let's look at what may have happened in your past, and let's see how you can be freed from that, so that you and your husband can get on the same page and you can move forward.
And I think that's a really tremendous point there. A lot of us, I had a a journalist interviewing me for an article once in a magazine. And she said, so tell me about money wounds. And I was like, huh? And then I immediately knew what she was talking about. And really, she had in 2 words expressed what I had been trying to express in a lot more verbose ways. But we all carry some level of money wounding, both for good, for bad, for real bad. And that definitely informs it. So I love that you point those who just cannot get it on the same page to seek professional counsel, because it will help you explore that and bring it to a manageable level in your life so you can get on the same page. That's awesome. I really think it's excellent, this idea. We always look with this podcast to bring right now relevant application for people. And what you express with these 60-minute money workouts, that is the walkaway point that I would just encourage everybody listening to the podcast today is you need to go get that, download it. You said they can download it and it gives them guided conversations. Tell us a little more about that.
Absolutely. So this is a resource that just kind of sets up what the 60-minute money workout is. And we start with a warm up, and the warm up is where you start by saying something positive. It's less than 5 minutes. And a lot of times when couples may come to this, there's some, there's these vibes going on of this negativity, or they've been arguing, and it's like, I don't want to shut up. I'd rather go get a root canal. So you don't know exactly what it's like when you start it out. So let's start by saying something really positive. And it's like, maybe even something like, hey, I appreciate you coming here to have this money workout. And other cases, it just might be nice hair. I mean, because that's all you can come up with, at that point. And then, you're going to decide on the topic, and you start to work through some of the aspects of the topic. And then there's another section where you start to look at what has prevented us from being successful. Let's say you're trying to pay down debt. That's your topic. How are we going to pay down debt? And in the past, charging new things, keeps you from paying down debt. And so you discuss some of the hurdles and how you can overcome them. And then before you know it, you've gone through the entire hour and you're at the cool down. And at the cool down, you end by saying something positive as well. A lot of times it's a lot easier to say something positive at the very end. And then you set a date and a time for your next workout. Because if you're not intentional about it, it ain't going to happen. Yeah. Life is so busy. You've got all those little kids running around, and it's real difficult. But my millennial children do this as well. And, Joe, it works. It doesn't matter what generation it is. It will really work. And I'm grateful that my kids do this when they talk with their spouses about it. And, gonna do the little mom brag here a little bit, but all of our kids are debt free. That includes student loan debt.
How awesome is that?
Except for houses, but some of them have more than one house already in their 30s, and they've learned these principles and how good they work. And I'm really proud of how they do it.
So I love what you just shared there. Number one, is there anything more rewarding than seeing your children apply this and being successful? Nothing is greater than that. Number two is it really rolls back to discipline and, exercise, diet, all this stuff boils back to personal discipline. Generosity happens through discipline. And what I love about what you're describing with the 60-minute money workout, I'm going to download it. I'm going to use it. It's going to be fun to use, is it gives you guided discipline. And I know that for my bride, when she goes and works out at the YMCA, she always goes to the class because it's guided. And she does not know how I can just go run in a straight line for 30 minutes and not even listen to music. She does not comprehend it. But for her, she needs that guidance. It helps her remain disciplined. So I love that. So, hey, Ellie, I'm so grateful that you took some time to spend with our podcast today. Where can people learn more about what you do and contact you and your team if they wanted to reach out to you?
Well, they can go to elliekay.com, ELLIEKAY.com, Or if they're interested in bringing financial education to their local military unit, they can go to heroesathome.org. Those are the two organizations where they can reach me.
Awesome. We will connect that in the show notes and send it out with the email with the podcast episode. We do serve a lot of military towns and communities: Cheyenne, Wyoming, Rapid City, South Dakota, Goldsboro, North Carolina, just to name a few. So I really encourage everybody to check it out at elliekay.com and heroesathome.org. Ellie, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. It means a lot.
Well, thank you so much, Joe, and keep up the good work. I love your podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hey everyone, Joe Sangel here. Thanks so much for watching this episode. Hey, I encourage you to check out our other videos that are available here. If you like this, hey, every single week we're producing new content that is to help you with right now relevant information. So make sure you click one of the links and check out some more of our information. I think you'll be so glad that you did. I know your wallet will be glad you did.